Hello, everyone, and welcome to my interview with Mandy Moore, the choreographer extraordinaire. She's done projects like La La Land, Valley Girl, and of course, Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist. Thank you so much, Mandy, for being here with me.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
All right, so we're gonna jump in, do a little bit of a profile. Did you always know you wanted to be a choreographer?
Yes, I think from my mom told me with it when I was a baby. Anytime she would put on music, I'd be bobbing my head, and she'd be like, "That's not possible that this kid is bobbing, her head to music." And so she changed the song, and I'd find the beat again, and I'd bob my head, and as soon as I could walk, I was dancing, and as soon as I was dancing, I went into a dance studio, a local dance studio, and probably the first couple weeks I was there, I was making up my own solos. So I think that choreography has always just been like a thing for me. And, from the time I was a little kid, that's all I ever wanted to do was be a choreographer.
So, if someone was interested in doing this, how would they make the leap into it?
Well, I mean, first things first, you have to be comfortable making up dance moves, that you have to be comfortable listening to songs and, seeing shapes in your head and not being afraid to move your body. And then, another part of it is probably a little bit of a bossy gene. You should have a little bit of I want to tell you how to do this and teaching gene. And then, I was also a dancer for a long time in LA and worked in some films that I know and some commercials and television shows, and was lucky enough to assist some choreographers. And, that's a really great way to get in, is to be on set and be an assistant. And then obviously when people move on, or they, then you have an opportunity to possibly take their spot. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's like most things in the industry. You have to really love it to want it to get very far, I think. And luckily I do.
So I wasn't planning on asking this, but this is an interesting question that I just gauged from what your answer was just there. What project made you feel like you had that moment where you're like, this is going to become my life?
Probably when I was assisting Carrie Ananaba, who is a Dancing with the Stars judge now, on the first season of So You Think You Can Dance. And I was running the audition tour with her, where the people would go through the kind of throes of the audition, and then they would go and learn a combination. And I was assisting her in that moment. And I remember thinking, I want to do this. I want to work on television. I want to work in film. I like being behind the camera. That's I really like to be a part of the creation process. That's always been more interesting to me than performing. I love to dance, but it was never interesting. There's some dancers that get in front of camera and they're like, yes. I always was like, I'm tired. I've been here for 12 hours and you want us to dance now, So I knew that too. I think I just loved the camera side of it, and listening to the DP talk and talking to the producers about how they were going to do something. So I think that's when I knew it was over for me. Choreographer for life.
I talked to Austin, I think it was about 2 weeks ago at this point, and something interesting came out of that conversation. He basically said that he felt like you were his right hand lady on this, that you two kind of, just kind of played off one another, and you were partners in crime, so to speak. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Austin. How did you meet him? How did this idea get pitched to you?
Well, it's a very long story, so I'm going to give you the bullet points.
Sure.
So about 10 years ago, he was in the wedding party for his best friend that I choreographed their wedding dance. So random story. The woman was a producer at So You Think and had a friend, wanted me to choreograph or asked me if I would choreograph. Met Austin probably 10 something years ago. Hadn't seen him. And then we were invited to a lunch together for a totally different project. I walked in and he's like, Mandy, I know you from, David and Sabina's wedding. And I was like, oh yeah, Austin, I remember you. You were a rascal, whatever. So we hit it off at that lunch. He gave me his contact or we exchanged contacts. And about a week later, he emailed me and said, I think I have a project that's going to get picked up for a pilot at NBC. Would you read it? Would you ever be interested? And I kind of honestly thought, this is weird. That's weird timing, but I read it. And I have to be honest, Scott, within the first 4 pages of it, I was in. I thought, this is so unique and fun and vibrant and joyful and heartfelt and like all, and has so much dance. Like that's what I also was like, are we really going to make a show that has this much dance? So immediately I called them. I said, if you want me, I'm in 100%. Then in the early pre-pro stages of the pilot, Richard Shepard, our director, and Austin and I hit it off. We just, they were like, how do we start with the choreography talks? And I just said, I think we need to sit in a room for 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday and watch videos and talk about what you like about dance, what you don't like about dance, because there's so many ways that dance can be on camera. So in those conversations, I think Austin, Richard, and I really found a common language and a friendship, and we were co-collaborators. And after Richard did the pilot and left and we didn't have him anymore, it really became Austin and I. And I don't know. It's like I speak Austin speak, and he speaks Mandy speak. It's like we really understand one another. And part of my job as a choreographer is to understand what he wants. And luckily, 99.9% of the time, it's very in line with what my gut is, what my intuition is. So I think that's why he and I became so close, because it was almost like we're kind of the same person when it comes to what we want from dance and what we want from storytelling and what we feel is great storytelling for television.
My follow-up to that is, in terms of working together on season 1 versus season 2, and this is something that I talked to him about as well, is that the first season is sort of like the build up to loss. It's all about like, we know something bad's going to happen. We're just counting down the days, the moment. And once it happens, it sort of feels like the story's over. When you come back for a season 2, and now you have to pick up like how to deal with loss, and then you have to build all the sub characters or the secondary characters. For your role in this process, does that go to, we have to do something that's bigger and better in terms of numbers to make it stand out more? Or like, what's your approach to that for the numbers and stuff?
Well, I mean, I definitely think the kind of like surface part is always bigger, better, stronger. I think whenever you come back again, there's always this like, okay, well, how can we top ourselves? But
yes,
what I love about dance is that topping ourselves can come in a lot of different packages. From the beginning, the challenge of this show and the beauty, I think, is that it's not like most storytelling with dance on television. Austin is not afraid for somebody to do something very simple in a number, but it's still dance, right? But he also loves Hello Dolly, where they're literally like giving you Broadway moves where they're kicking and turning and jumping. So for season 2, I just also personally wanted to push myself with really trying to dig deeper into how you can use dance as a vehicle for storytelling. How can I find shapes that evoke emotion that is complex, that has multiple layers, because I think sometimes dance can be like one layer. It's like, oh, wow, that's beautiful, or that's sad, or that's happy, and I wanted to see if I could weave throughout numbers, finding something that's maybe joyful that then becomes sad, or something that is kind of jealous that becomes awkward, or trying to understand how I could make those more multidimensional emotions and feelings and physicalize them. So, and also just trying to find like cool ways to shoot it. I know cool is a really lame way to say it, but something that is visually impactful for the audience, but still is the language that we have set up from the beginning for our show when it comes to the zoalities. It wasn't easy. Season 2, first of all, we shot it in a pandemic. So, not that the audience ever cares about that, but
yeah,
that was tough. I'm not going to lie, shooting an entire season with the strict protocols of things and the testings, and that takes away it takes a lot of brain energy when you're heading a department to figure that out. And that season 2 wasn't linear. You're right, like season 1 felt very like, I'm not going to say easy to kind of work on the trajectory of where everybody was going, but season 2 was like bing, bang, boom, like all over the place, which it was supposed to be, like, because it's not linear. So also within the numbers, I had to also go, okay, whoa, this person last episode was here and now they're over here and they're feeling this, so how can I also help to show that in the dance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fascinating point. Like, to me, one of the things that I think a lot of people initially struggled with with the second season, from what I was reading online and what I was reading in reviews and stuff, was the fact that the storylines sort of like were like, this week we're really focused on Mo, and this week we're really focused on Max, and like the storylines kind of shifted away from Zoey, and as a result, you kind of had this balancing act of like you said, it was sort of, in a weird way, the show itself was a dance, right? It was the whole thing. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it was interesting to watch, and at first it was a little jarring
Yes.
because the formula was mixed up, and I was sort of like, what's going on here, like but then as the show progressed, and I think your episode that you directed until the finale, I mean, you literally it literally went from like, to me, like a 75 to like 100. Like I was literally like back in love with it, like strongest episodes ever. Just amazing. I know you also had you had the opportunity to finally direct something, and you directed the one of the episodes I just mentioned, the double date episode. Walk me through that. What was that like? How did you get? How did Austin pitch that? Did you know that this was going to be your episode? And you also had I think one of the biggest musical numbers in the show in that episode.
Yeah. Well, I think when it all came, last season, he had wanted me to direct. This had already been in the conversation.
Okay.
And, it wasn't right last season because I also was still trying to wrap my head around just doing my job as a choreographer and a producer. That alone, it was like, I didn't want to just be like, okay, great. Yeah, I'm directing now, like that was important to me in season 1 to just say, okay, I think I just need to focus on this. So when it came up again and he said, okay, it's time, you're going to direct, it went up the NBC ladder, the Lionsgate, everyone was happy. I thought, okay, great. And then I really think he just was like, this has to be the best episode ever because you're directing it, So he really put his time in, and the writers were amazing. And so first of all, I was given a great episode. I will say that. And I also, I've been there since day one, Scott. So I also knew that there is no way that I can let this thing be less than amazing. I know every nook and cranny of the show. I know every character. I know what they've been through, so it's kind of not fair because I've been there since the beginning. So that alone, I feel like that also helped, that I knew all the nuances, and I'd seen things that didn't work in other episodes, and I'd seen choices that were made with other episodes that I was like, maybe that didn't go as well. So I really knew kind of my pitfalls and how not to fall into them. And then, he packed it with dance and song, which is obviously my lane. So, being able to do the beta breakers, on some level, I don't know if he said this to you, but on some level, I think he thinks it's funny where he's like, let's see how far I can push Mandy. Is she really going to like lose it on this episode or this, this song? And that race was, again, right up my alley. I love big numbers. I love big numbers with camera and television and film. And that's my thing. So that one was a really fun one to create and kind of just figure out how logistically we could do it.
So you mentioned something before this, which I wanted to tie into this episode, and that is filming during the pandemic. What was that? I mean, so many people talk about like how difficult it was to film during the pandemic, but when you're filming a musical number where people have to be in a very close proximity, walk me through that. Like tell like, what was that process like of having to do it? What were the stages that you had everyone to do?
Well, first of all, when I got up to Vancouver initially, and we were in our pre-pro for season 2, a big part of my job was sitting in meetings with the COVID team and with the unions to figure out how we were going to do it. Because on paper, it's like everyone's wearing masks, nobody touches each other, and you stand 6 feet away from each other. But that is not possible. You'd have to be shooting a football field in order to get 30 people in a shot. So a lot of that was figuring out protocols that everyone felt safe to move forward with. And part of that obviously was in every single one of my rehearsals, everyone wore a mask all day long. We would take breaks every 30 minutes and go and wash our hands. There was, all of these stations where we would have extra masks and hand sanitizer. And because in those meetings, we realized like, I can't do my job. We can't do the show if people can't touch or people can't be next to each other. And we had to really talk through, Jane is going to be in a scene with Skylar and they're going to kiss. That's no different really than dancers being next to somebody and touching. So We put all the dancers in zone A, which I'm sure you've probably heard a lot of this, that there were zones and they were
Mhm.
tested every other day. And there were multiple tests before they ever were even allowed onto set. And, that was its own kind of beast, just tracking and figuring all of that out. But honestly, once we started, it was rough in the first maybe like month, like because people just didn't know how to deal or like how to work within it. But it's so weird how everyone just assimilates, like we all just figured it out and that was all part of it. And we had to schedule that accordingly and blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, you're shooting and you're doing beta breakers with, hundreds of people outside in Vancouver safely. I mean, we never had to shut down for anything. So, I was really proud of the entire team for that because it could have been a lot worse for sure.
No, it's amazing because I feel like every show you heard some sort of story on, oh, Mr. Mayor shut down for a couple of weeks and now it's only 9 episodes because we're not restarting this season. I mean, all this, I feel like every TV show had such a short season this year.
Yeah.
And I understand because a lot of them had issues. So
Yeah.
it was like, why bother? I'm curious to pick your brain on just fun moments that you've had. And I'm going to begin this and I'll share mine. Favorite song performance, mine is, and I told Austin this and he kind of laughed because I heard he got a lot of backlash for it, is the Starships performance. Because I thought it was so out of character for Zoey and the rest of them, and I just loved the way you were able to make me like a Nicki Minaj song.
I love you for this. Yes, God, same. I mean, yeah. So talk about that one for a second. So same. I'm not a huge fan of the song. Like I was like,
Yeah.
all right, Austin and I had so many discussions about what does a zoality number look like when she's high? Like, because we also there's a version of this where everyone could have been dressed like popsicles or something. There is that version. And
The Katy Perry version?
Yes, totally. We went down that road and it was
Yeah.
like, okay, no, it's just that Jane is such an incredible actress too. So it's like, even just this little part in the beginning where she's doing all these gestures with her face and then she knocks the camera and it goes over.
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe that's the way, is that we're just kind of manipulating the kind of reality of the moment in a way, and the axis, we're just shifting the axis. And then as the audience, you're in, and that one was really fun. We had a lot of fun in those rehearsals between Felix and Jane and Noah. I mean, when Noah does the little Fosse moment, I'm like, of course, Danny Michael Davis would do Fosse. But yeah, I mean, I think I also really loved Hard Knock Life with all the programmers in in Spark Point when they're all packing up the shirts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, probably people didn't track this, but we actually did physically wrap up every shirt and bat and ball and glove and hat within the number. There was no trickery. We did it all. Actually, it could have been shot as a oneer. So I was proud of that one. And also because those guys are they're so funny. They're very comedic, all of them in those rehearsals. And Cap, sometimes I can't keep a straight face in rehearsal with him. So I really love that one too. But, after 130 numbers, Scott, I don't know how I could say, one is a favorite, but yeah, probably.
Okay, they're telling me to wrap, but I feel like I have to ask this question before they leave. So don't kill me, people behind the scenes. I need to ask this because this happened this week, and I'm sort of devastated by this news. The cancellation. How did you find out? And just to end this, what can we as fans do to support this? Find this show a new home.
Well, I mean, Austin called me on Monday. It was devastating. And he just said that NBC and Peacock had passed. And obviously it's just a gut punch. You kind of prepare yourself because we hadn't heard something for a while, but you just think that's not possible. We have such a huge fan base and, it's people are loving it critically. So I think as fans, I think it's reaching out to, I don't know, how do you get to Netflix and say, hey, this needs to be on Netflix, or hey, Hulu, it needs to be here. But I think it's continuing this social media push. That's a huge thing in our world right now. Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And tagging the different streamers. That's all I can think. Or we need to do a big flash mob and go down Hollywood Boulevard, save Zoe's, I don't know. But hopefully we do find a place, because I know for me, I'm not done. I still have more stories to tell, and I know Austin feels the same. So does the cast. So
yeah, I honestly hope that it gets, if nothing else, at least someone picks it up for one final season, so that you're able to kind of close all the story arcs.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's always sucks when you have a show, then you have so many open, open questions and you don't get to finish them. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Netflix, Hulu, someone will pick it up. But thank you, Mandy.
Thank you,
Such a
Scott.
pleasure. I could have probably talked to you for another 20, 25 minutes, but maybe
Same.
next
I mean,
time.
if you need anything else, let me know. Okay. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.